Hey everyone, it's Pam from StellarCraftsbyPam, and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel and blog. Today I'm featuring the Unstoppable stamp set from Pajama Crafter Stamps. We're going to focus on some Copic coloring as well as some ink blending for its nice fiery background. First, we're going to need three different sheets of cardstock. The first one is going to be for our Copic coloring or coloring with alcohol markers. The second one is a watercolor cardstock. We're going to be using the smooth side rather than the rough side. This is going to be for our ink blending. And the third one is a 110-pound cardstock, which is cut to 8.5 by 4.25 inches and scored at the 5.5-inch line on the long side. So let's start off with our ink blending with our watercolor cardstock. We have four Distress Oxide inks we're going to be using. We're going to use Fossilized Amber, Crackling Campfire, Fired Brick, and Black Soot. And I'll be using my designated ink blending tools for each of these colors. First, to create our fiery background, we're going to use Fossilized Amber. I'm just ink blending it towards the center and going towards the bottom of my cardstock. And then next we're going to use our Crackling Campfire. And right now I'm just laying down the colors. I'm not worrying about blending them. I'm not worried about any smooth transitions. I'm just getting the color down so I have enough color to work with. Next, we're going to lay down our fired brick right after our crackling campfire. And again, I'm just laying down the color. So I'm really pushing my ink blending tool into that ink so it soaks up enough ink for me to work with. And once I'm done with the fire brick, I can go on to the black soot. And I'm mainly just putting this on the corners and each side of the cardstock except for the bottom that I want to keep as those light colors. Now, once we lay down all of our color, then we can start on actually blending the colors together and getting a smooth transition. So I'm using the Fossilized Amber blending tool to blend out between Fossilized Amber and Crackling Campfire. Then I'm going to use the Crackling Campfire tool to blend out between the Crackling Campfire and Fired Brick. And then lastly, I'm going to be using the Fired Brick tool to blend out between the fired brick and the black soot. And that's just going to allow all these colors to have a smooth transition from one to the other. And I will be putting more color on. I'm not going to show the whole process, but you get the point. I'm just going back and forth between all the colors until I get a look that I want for my card. So this is kind of basically what we're left with, and this is what it will look like once it dries and really soaks into that paper. So next we're going to build our mountain. So I have this mountain stencil from my stash, and I'm just using some tape to tape my background to my work surface and some additional tape to tape down my mountain. I'm just making sure that's on there really good so it doesn't move when I am ink blending. So I'm using some VersaFine Clair in Nocturne. This is a very black pigment ink, and I'm using a blending brush to apply this. So in order for this to get the black I want, I am making layers of it. So I did one layer, then I heat set it, then I did another layer, and then I heat set it. And I think I ended up with 3 or 4 layers until I got the nice black rich tone that I wanted against the cardstock. So now we can go ahead and put that aside so that we can work on our stamping. This is the Unstoppable stamp set from Pajama Crafter Stamps. It features a female warrior and a bunch of sentiments to show her strength. So we have Unstoppable, Word of the Year, Unstoppable. Then we have Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. Then we have I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The comeback is always stronger than the setback. And then she believed she could, so she did. So we're going to use that believe she believed she could, so she did, and the unstoppable sentiments for our card. So first I'm going to go ahead and lay down our warrior girl, and I'm going to use some Copic friendly ink to stamp her since we're going to be coloring her in with some Copic markers, or you can use any alcohol markers that you have, or even colored pencils or watercolor. It's up to you. But I'm going to be using my Copic markers to color her in. And what I like to do anytime that I stamp images I'm going to color, I go ahead and heat set the image just to make sure I don't get any smudging when I'm coloring. So we're going to start here with R29 for the heart on her shield and the heart on her belt. Then we're going to go in with R27 to just blend out that R29 and to fill in the rest of the hearts. Then next we're going to work on her skin. So I made this card with my daughter in mind, who is mixed with African American and Caucasian. So I always lean towards this tannish color when I make my people for my cards now. And so I'm using this E33, which is like a darker tan, and I'm using this to lay down all of my shadows for my girl. So I have it around her face, I have it on her arms, her hand, and her legs. All those things are kind of poking out between her warrior outfit. I'm not sure what you really call it, but her outfit, her suit, her armor. And then I'm going in with E21 to blend out that E33 color. And once I do that, then I can go ahead and fill in the remainder of her skin with that E21. So all of her face, her arms, hands, and legs. So for her hair, I used 3 different shades of brown. I first started off with this E29 as my darkest color, and I just followed the lines on the hair and put in where I think the shadows would be on the hair. Then I followed in with E37 to blend out that E29. And then I ended up finishing it off with some E33, which I don't think made much of a difference, but it really helped to kind of blend all the colors together so that it was cohesive. And, as nice as I could get it, since I'm not the best when it comes to hair. So this is what we got. And then I'm just going back in with that E37 to do the little strands of hair that are poking out from her helmet. And I might have been able to do this a little bit easier with the fine tip part of my marker, but I went ahead with the brush tip and did the best that I could. And then I also colored her eyes the same color. Next, I went in to do the armor. So I used N2 for where I thought the shadows should be. So I did it on her helmet and then the rest of her body armor. So her suit, her shield, her shoes, her sword. And then once I had my shadows in, I used N0 to blend those out and just fill in the rest of the armor. I went back a little bit with the N2 to bring in a little bit more shadows where I may have forgotten them, and then went back and blended them out with N0. And that was pretty much it for her armor. I just wanted to kind of keep it that metallic silver color that you might normally see for armor. And then I went in with my colorless blender to kind of get rid of some color where I didn't want it at. Lastly, I also went in with a white gel pen to create some shine marks. I always think that this adds a nice detail. It makes it look a little bit more realistic or a little bit more 3D. So I usually use like a line and a couple of dots. And then when there's curves, then I go along the curve instead of a straight line. For a last final detail, I use this R20 to kind of add some blush color to her cheeks. And then I use some dots of white gel pen just to highlight that a little bit, give her a little bit of shine. And here's a final look at what that looks like, all colored in. And then I use my brother's scan and cut to die cut her out. So to finish off the card, we can now bring in our sentiments. So we have the word unstoppable, and I'm just placing our little warrior down so that I can see where I need to put my second sentiment, which is she believed she could, so she did. So I'm just laying that down and then slowly kind of just pushing it up so it just touches the other stamp so that it looks like one whole sentiment instead of two separate ones. I'm using my Misty to pick those up and my VersaFine Clair ink in Nocturne to stamp that. And I ended up doing that a couple of times, which is the great thing about having a Misty. If it doesn't stamp well the first time, you can always do it again, the exact same spot. And off camera, I did heat set that before adding foam tape to our little warrior girl and popping her up onto our card. I just think that because the rest of the card, the little added dimension just really brings a nice finishing touch to the card. And then I just use some regular tape runner adhesive to put this background onto our top folding A2 card that we had prepared in the beginning of creating this card. As an afterthought, I decided to use a few black drops to enhance the sentiment a little bit. The card just seemed like it was a little bare, so I just used some Barely Art glue to adhere those down. I did the rule of threes, and those just gave the card a nice finished look in the end. So here's a look at that final card and our little warrior and all of our finishing details. I hope you guys enjoyed this card tutorial. Remember, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to see more. I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.